Go right ahead.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are so happy and excited that you are joining us for another phenomenal, inspirational, and encouraging Tuesday noonday Bible study. We're so excited about your presence here with us on today. Now, I know I say this about every chapter. But seriously, this time I really mean it. This topic that we're going to be talking about is so exciting, so exciting, so exciting. And so, if you don't mind, this particular topic is based on chapter 7 of our book entitled Building Self-Confidence. You know that we're in this amazing book by our beloved sister, Dr. Tama Bryant, and we have been having a blast as we have been engaging in the various chapters of this book. And so we are so excited, family, because this chapter, I must say, don't laugh at me. I must say this is my favorite chapter. Of all the chapters in the book, this chapter right here, chapter 7, is my favorite chapter. We're looking at chapter 7, which is entitled Building Self-Confidence. And there is an awesome Bible story that we're going to talk about and unpack in light of this chapter. Please, family, if you have your Bibles, do me a favor. Please, if you have your Bibles, do me a favor. Quickly turn to Exodus. Second book of the Bible, right? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy is the second book of the Bible in the Old Testament. Exodus chapter 3. We're going to check out verse 1 in Exodus chapter 3. I'm going to share my screen in a moment. Before I do that, I want to ask that you please grab pen and paper because you don't want to miss any of the wonderful wisdom and insight that we share on today. Exodus chapter 3. And we're going to ask, quickly, grab your pen and paper. Quickly, grab your pen and paper. We're going to ask that you follow along with us. We're also going to ask that you do us a favor. Please share this video because this is going to help. This is going to help somebody that's struggling. During our COVID-19 pandemic, we take serious what we call digital evangelism. So that's right, family. Share this video. Share this video with somebody. You've heard this story time and time again, right? Our beloved, amazing brother Moses in Exodus chapter 3 experiences a burning bush. As it reads, beginning at verse 1, Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led his flock beyond the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. Then the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of a bush. He looked and the bush was blazing, yet it was not consumed. Then Moses said, I must turn aside and look at this great sight and see why the bush is not burned up. Then the Lord saw, when the Lord saw that Moses had turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, he said, here I am. Then he said, come no closer, remove the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you're standing is holy ground. And he said further, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have observed the misery of my people who are in Egypt. I have heard their cry on account of their taskmasters. Indeed, I know their sufferings, and I've come down to deliver them from the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the country of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. The cry of the Israelites has come to me, and I have seen how the Egyptians have oppressed them. So come, I will send you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, please, family, pay attention to this verse 11. Moses said to God, but who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? God said, I'll be with you, and this will be a sign for you, that it is I who sent you. And when you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God on this mountain. But Moses said to God, if I come to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your ancestors has sent me, and they ask, well, what is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, you tell them I am who I am. Thus you shall say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. Now, fast forward down to chapter 4, verse 1. Then Moses answered, but suppose they do not believe me or listen to me, but say the Lord did not appear to you. The Lord said to him, what is that in your hand? He said, it's a staff. And he said, throw it on the ground. So he threw the staff on the ground and it became a snake. And Moses drew back from it. Then the Lord said to Moses, reach out your hand and seize it by the tail. So he reached out his hand and he grasped it and it became a staff in his hand, so that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their ancestors, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has appeared to you. Scroll down to verse 10. But Moses says to the Lord, oh, my Lord, I've never been eloquent, neither in the past nor even now, that you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. Then the Lord said to him, who gives speech to mortals? Who makes them mute or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you are to speak. Moses says, oh, Lord, please send somebody else. Then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, what of your brother Aaron, the Levite? I know that he can speak fluently. Even now, he is coming out to meet you. And when he sees you, his heart will be glad. You shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I'll be with your mouth and with your mouth and with his mouth, and will teach you what you shall do. So ends the reading. We understand where our brother Moses is coming from in this text. Certainly, we have all experienced a Moses moment, like what we see in this Exodus chapter 3 and 4 text. We understand what Moses is going through. Our brother Moses is suffering tremendously. Our brother Moses is afraid. He has been called for a great task. Our brother Moses is called to lead the oppressed children of Israel out of Egypt, to go to their enslaver, the oppressing Pharaoh himself, and say, the Lord has said, let my people go. Now we know this task that Moses is called to do. It makes him nervous. It makes him scared. He is afraid. Why is he afraid? According to Exodus chapter 3 and 4, our beloved brother Moses is afraid because he has a speech impediment. That's right. In Exodus chapter 4, verse 10, our brother Moses says, I don't speak clearly. Our brother Moses, it is believed, has a stuttering problem. He stutters when he speaks. He has a speech abnormality. And so this seems to take away his confidence. He now struggles with his self-confidence. How is it God could call somebody who is disabled to do such a mighty, mighty, mighty task? If anybody has studied disability or disability awareness, we understand that there are tons of people around our country who have a disability, But one of the first learnings that we must grapple with today is how do we understand that even if you have a disability, whatever that disability may be, you can still experience a call from God. You might be in a wheelchair. You may have a walking ailment. You may have a speech impediment. You may be blind, but yet and still, please know that God can still call you to do something amazing. How do we maintain sensitivity to those who are disabled in our community? To not second guess them, to not believe that God can't call them, to be judgmental, to look down on them, but know that just like Moses, who had a speech impediment, who had a disability, God could still call our disabled brothers and sisters to be liberating presence in the lives of people who are hurting and oppressed today. And so we see our brother Moses struggles with fear. And this is where our wonderful Dr. Tamar Bryant wants us to land the plane for a few moments and talk about how do we build our self-confidence when we wrestle with fear. First and foremost, according to a wonderful therapist by the name of Gloria Wilcox. Gloria Wilcox, last name spelled Willcox. All of us struggles with six feelings, sad, mad, scared, peaceful, joyful, powerful, sad, mad, scared, peaceful, joyful, powerful. And so on that list, all of us have wrestled with scared or fear. Fear is a human emotion that all persons experience, according to Gloria Wilcox. So we cannot promote a theology that says, oh no, you're not supposed to be afraid. God did not give you a spirit of fear. You're not called to be scared. That's not true. That's bad theology. As a human being, we all experience fear or scare. So we all know what Moses is experiencing in this Exodus chapter 3 and Exodus chapter 4 chapter or text. The question becomes for us, how do we push through our fear and build our self-confidence so that we can accomplish whatever is the mission and purpose that God is calling for us to accomplish while we are still on this earth? So our author today, Dr. Tamar Bryant, gives us wonderful strategies and interventions for how to build self-confidence. How to build self-confidence. Building self-confidence is so important, so very important. We are now called to reflect on the words of the incomparable Khalil Gibran. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled from the peaks of the mountains, the long winding road crossing the forests and villages. And in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter, there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The river cannot go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear. Because that's where the river will know it's not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean. In some sense, Dr. Bryant is explaining to us that all of us are like rivers. Even though a river is important, even though a river is small, the river is limited in its calling. In some sense, our brother Moses is called to be the ocean, called to expand, called to not only simply just remain a river, but expand into a larger mass, an ocean. And all of us are called to do the same. All of us are called to expand, to do something more, to be something more, to accomplish something more, a divine purpose, if you will, to be an ocean. But sometimes fear impedes us, fear stops us. Fear somehow challenges us and says, no, don't expand, don't become more. So how do we begin to push past our fear and develop our confidence? Expand into the mission, the purpose, the being that God is calling us to be. First and foremost, Dr. Bryant says, we must look to the past for wisdom and insight. That's right. That's right. That's right. She says, rule number one, how do we reflect on past life experiences and have, in some sense, a Sankofa moment? A Sankofa moment. I love the term Sankofa. Sankofa is an African concept which says to look back and figure out golden nuggets that exist in our lives. An image that we primarily reflect on is the Sankofa bird. If you notice, the bird's feet are pointing forward, but its neck is turning backwards. In some sense, Dr. Bryant suggests this act of turning backwards is a form of looking back at our past. Dr. Bryant says we have to look at our past life experiences because our past life experiences give us wisdom and insight. When we find ourselves afraid to journey forward, becoming the ocean, one strategy or intervention we can employ is to look back, look at our past, and see what golden nuggets we can hold on to, what golden nuggets we can grab hold of. If you look at this image, look at the mouth. Look at the mouth of this Sankofa bird in particular. What do you notice is in the bird's mouth? You should notice in the bird's mouth is an egg. We often refer to this egg as a golden nugget, if you will. This Sankofa bird is looking back and grabbing onto a golden nugget. Dr. Bryant says in some sense, that's what we're called to do with our lives. We build confidence by looking back into our personal life experiences and figuring out, what are the golden nuggets, wisdom, insight that we can grab hold of that can propel us into the future. That could be wonderful wisdom and insight to help us as we move into the future. We have to be willing to go back. So looking at our past becomes pivotal. As you have your notes, the next reflective question we want you to grab hold to is, in the spirit of Sankofa, think about particular life experiences and events. What have they taught you? As you're grappling with a particular crisis that you're now faced with, a particular wonderment around, wow, how am I going to accomplish this? Look back and discern for yourself what are golden nuggets you could grab hold to. What is it that your past has taught you that you can use now as inspiration? You are a survivor. So look back at your past life experiences and say, I came through that. I came through that. I came through that. In psychology and human development, we call this remembering past memories. The act of remembering past memories is a wonderful psychological strategy that helps us remember, refocus our attention on, if I came through this successfully, then surely I can come through this future event successfully. So, as you journey into self-reflection on past life experiences, jot down on your paper, what are important life experiences you've come through? And how do you refocus your mind and attention on that? So that when fear settles, not if, but when fear settles in your mind, in your body, in your spirit, you can also remind yourself, I remember the same God who brought me through this in the past is the same God who is with me now. Also, an important question that we grapple with as we're looking back at previous life experiences is why Why? Why is this happening to me? Now, ironically, this is not a helpful question to grapple with. This is not a helpful question to grapple with. Oftentimes, many of us grapple with this question. Like, this is the first question when we hit a crisis that jumps out in our mind. We say to ourselves, why is this happening to me? Of all the people on the face of the planet that God could make this thing happen to, that the devil could bug and bother and tempt. Why is this happening to little old me? But that's not the question we want to ask ourselves. That's not the healthy question we want to grapple with. The healthy question we want to ask ourselves is, what is this experience trying to teach me? What is this experience trying to teach me? Please write that question down in your notes. The next time you find yourselves wrestling with a particular issue, crisis, and you become scared, simply ask yourself, what is this experience trying to teach me? So that past life experience that you're wrestling with, you can also ask this question of that past life experience too. I've been through ABC, XYZ. I've had to survive ABC, XYZ. I've had to come through ABC, XYZ. The question you want to ask yourself is, what is this experience trying to teach me? And I guarantee you, family, if you can replace why is this happening to me to what is this trying to teach me, you'll start to experience a change in everything around you. We also say that it is so important as you're looking at your past to also reflect on, you don't have to stay stuck in your past. Dr. Bryant highlights in our chapter 7 text, be careful as you're reflecting on your past, because you might be tempted to stay there. You might get locked in shame, guilt, beating yourself up, frustration around, woe is me. You might start having a pity party, but we say, no, don't have a pity party. The past is a place of reference, not a place of residence. What does this mean? This means we're only supposed to temporarily visit the past. We're not supposed to live there. Don't live in the past. The past is just a temporary place of reference, not a permanent place of residence. You cannot live in the past. I am 43 years old. And from time to time, I graduated from high school when I was 17. So recently, I got an email from the particular high school alumni association where I went to high school. I went to high school in Chicago at Percy L. Juliet on 103rd of Vincennes. And I said, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. And I'm going to go to my high school reunion. And I'm telling you, family, that was a mistake. Because I noticed that even though I decided to go and visit my high school reunion and hang out at my high school reunion, I noticed that the stories that all my former classmates told was all about what we were doing in high school 20 years ago. Every story that most of my colleagues told was about, remember we was freshmen and we did this, and remember we were sophomores and we did this, and remember this person did this. And I was sitting there scratching my head, totally lost, because half of these experiences I did not remember. Half of these experiences I was like, well, when did that happen? And then it dawned on me. Every time me and a couple of my other friends would try to fast forward the conversation and talk about what we're doing in life now, there would be a few people who would be like, well, that's nice that you're doing that now, but remember when we were seniors in high school and we was doing this and that? Then it finally dawned on me. A couple of people in my high school continue to live there, continue to live in that same space and place of what we were doing when we were in high school. They had never fast forwarded and had anything that they were doing, thinking about, reflecting on, or accomplishing into the future some 20 years later. Literally, it's almost like their lives stopped when we were still in high school. And I began to say, wow, me and you have nothing in common anymore. We have nothing in common anymore because I don't live in my past. And so it's so important for us to remember we can't live in our past, family. We have to also remember, it's so important to highlight, we cannot allow anybody to shame us or guilt us for our past. A common thought we tend to highlight or bring up is don't allow anybody to shame you or guilt you for past life experiences. You might have some experiences that you've been through that you're not proud of. So as you begin to self-reflect and gain wisdom, golden nuggets from personal life experiences, you might start to feel a little bad, or you might think about the ways in which certain people, maybe family, friends, loved ones, may try to bring up your past to hurt you. You have to remind yourself not to feel shame, not to internalize shame, not to feel guilt, not to internalize guilt because of past life experiences. You might have to say to yourself or say to other people in your life, hey, trying to hurt me by bringing up my past is like trying to rob my old house. I don't live there anymore. That ain't my stuff. It is powerful that you would have to even remind some folks, hey, I don't live there anymore. That ain't my stuff. There's some people who only remember us from what we used to do 10 years ago, what we were doing 13 years ago, what we were doing 15 years ago. And you have to remind them, look, I know I was doing this 13 years ago. I know I did this 10 years ago. I know I did this. I know I did this 15 years ago, but that's my old house. I don't live there anymore. That ain't my stuff, right? You can't shame me or guilt me anymore for experiences that I used to do. I am free. I am different. I am changed. I've grown. I am wiser. I am smarter. So continuing to bring up what I did in June of 2008 or June of 2009, that doesn't mean anything to me anymore. That was 10 years ago. That was 15 years ago. I'll pause there for a moment if our pastor had anything.
No, that's real good, especially about the past and not living and residing in the past. And I so appreciate, you sharing the vulnerability of going on a high school reunion, because those are painful for me also. Many folk only remember me, in my high school days, and I just was not, I just was not the person that was, in the in crowd or any of that. And so, it's always a little difficult. And but it's also interesting to see how many people are living in the past. It is amazing. I had my high school homeroom teacher said on our graduation day, I'll be honest with you, I was a little bit out of my wits, and she could see that. And she said, you don't know how much you're going to miss these days.
Wow.
These are the best days of your life.
Oh,
And unfortunately, I held on to that for a little while until I let it go, realizing no, those are not the best days of my life. Those are the best days are still ahead, you
that's
know,
it. That's it.
and
That's
that
it.
was from a teacher, my
Wow.
homeroom teacher. And
Wow.
so that showed me something now as I reflect, about her at her age, obviously she was reflecting on, her high school time, and she felt that was the best years of her life. And so that is just it's kind of sad. It's really kind of sad. So no, the best years and the best days are still ahead of us.
Yes, yes, yes,
Oh,
yes, yes, yes.
yeah.
Dr. Chamber Bryant also highlights for us, in addition to reflecting on our past and what wisdom and insight we can get from our past, in light of what Pastor Jackson is saying, she also highlights how to be open to learning something new in our current life and into the future. She says, so yes, after we spend much time reflecting on our past, she said, now it's time to move forward. As Pastor said, yes, we can reflect on our past, but the best days of our life are what we're currently doing and into the future, what we're going to be doing. And so she says, in some sense, we got to remain open, 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 open. She says, people who are not able to be successful in life are because they're not able to remain open to something new. What they have in their mind right now, currently, is all they want to have in their mind. So, the second reflection or learning piece for us, in light of what Dr. Bryant highlights, is how do we remain open to knowing something new, learning something new, learning something different, learning something more than what we know now? An African proverb said, not to know is bad, but not to wish to know is even worse. This pushes us to reflect on motivation and drive. Are you motivated to learn something new? Or do you want to stay stuck in the past? Do you just want to stay stuck in your current mental state where all that you think about, all that you reflect on is what you currently know right now? She said, this is not good. We have to move to a place of being open. So, what are ways in which you've been open? How about taking a new class at a local college or university? How about reading a new book, like this homecoming book that we've been grappling with? How about becoming interested in a different topic? How about picking up a hobby of something that you've never done before? How about saying, I never thought about that before. Let me go and sign up. Or even something as simple as Google online a particular new topic or idea and thought. And let me research a new topic, idea, or thought. So, another reflective question that we'd like for you to jot down in your notes is, what's something new that you've always wanted to learn? What's something new that you've always wanted to learn? It could be a topic, an idea, a concept. It could be a hobby. It could be some sort of artistic expression. What's something new that you wanted to always learn or incorporate in your life? Now, key to learning something new is recognizing that you can't be afraid to jump out and do something different. You can't be afraid to jump into a new environment, a new landscape. When we talk about jumping out, I immediately think of this image. There's so many ideas, concepts, or thoughts when you look at this image. There's a goldfish that is in their own fish tank, surrounded by other goldfish. And this goldfish decides to jump out into a completely new, different goldfish tank. A tank where there is no other goldfish, a tank where he will be all alone. In some sense, we're called to be that little goldfish. In order to learn something new, we've got to be willing to jump out, maybe, into a new mindset, a new way of thinking, a new location, a new space to be. We have to be willing and not afraid, even to jump out into a space where there is nobody else. Maybe a space where we're moving away from particular people who we've kept around us. A space where we may be going at it alone. A space where there may not be any other goldfish around us. As you look at this image, what's some thoughts that jump out in your mind? I love this image. It speaks so much. It speaks so much to all of our calls, our missions. How do we not be afraid to jump into a new space, a new paradigm, a new way of being, a new way of thinking, different from the way we've always been doing it, and not be afraid to swim in different waters. I'll pause there for a second. If my pastor wants to add something.
There yet again, thank you so much. Another powerful, first of all, illustration, and then insight to to trying something new to stimulate not only the cerebral cortex, but to stimulate something in the spirit. I know Dr. Tamer talks about, you can be physically healthy and mentally, alert, but if we are detached from spirit, we are missing something. We're still like an engine that's not running on all cylinders. And so doing something new, whether it's craft work, some craft work, knitting, sewing, whatever, or learning a new language, playing around with a musical instrument, gardening, looking at different types of floral arrangements in our yards and house and things like that. Here's one that's, tasting different foods, tasting different seasonings. I often, my wife and I go back and forth with this because, there's certain seasonings that she just, she grew up on, she loves. And so then, the trick is now we're trying something different, some different herbs to season rather than just salt, because, I can't use much salt. So, I mean, even in doing that, I remember Reverend Dina Holland Neal this past week, she pointed out when she went to Africa, I think they were in Ghana, and she said, the folk that were hosting them brought them some McDonald's.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. And they said this, they said, because we know most of you are not used to our food, and we've experienced that people don't like it. And so they brought them McDonald's. Wow. And I said, oh my goodness. Wow. Because they obviously had experienced folk from this country, who were used to a certain way. And it was a big jump to begin to eat. And here's the thing, to eat food that actually is our food. We just haven't tasted it in a long time. Wow. So doing something different is so important. And it's not, and I want to say this, it's not about when we're doing something different. The other thing is, it's not about a destination. It's about the destiny. It's just about being into it. Not about a completed project. It's not about being, if you're learning a musical instrument, it's not, it's not about being, Chick Corea or any of the great pianists and musicians and whatnot. It's about just enjoying the fact that your fingers are touching the keys and you're making sound. And every day you're learning a new sound. And even the notes that don't go together too well, you experience, it's the experience that's spiritual. So yeah, thank you for that.
Oh, yeah, everything you're saying is right on. Everything you're saying is right on. Yes, yes, yes. Taylor Bryant also highlights for us another point is to take it step by step, as Pastor Jackson just said. I think Pastor Jackson is prophetic because he keeps highlighting everything I'm going to say before I say it.
It's the
As our,
spirit.
as our, as our pastor said, taking it one step at a time, right? She begins to say, as we're looking at our past and reflecting on past life experiences to see what golden nuggets give us wisdom and insight for the future and building our self-confidence that way, or as we're learning a new idea, a new topic, journeying to a new frame of reference, journeying into a new environment, a new experience, a new way of being, a new way of doing things. She says, we can't now seem to bite off more than we can chew. She says, it doesn't have to be some big, gigantic, unanimous jump. It could be something small, something like just taking one step. Sometimes you can't see the whole shift or change in advance. Sometimes all you can see is just a small little step. You can't see the whole staircase. You might just be able to see one step at a time, and that's okay. I'm reminded of an important quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. Oftentimes, this speaks so much to our life journey. Sometimes we don't know where God is calling us to. We can't see the whole vision front and center right at the beginning. Sometimes it's just a matter of God revealing this first step to us, and that's it. So some of this is a faith journey. Let's be honest, some of this is a faith journey because sometimes we only can see the first step. We can't see the rest. We can't fathom it in our limited human imagination. God knows, God is omnipresent, God is omnipotent, God is all powerful, all knowing. So God sees the whole staircase, but sometimes all we can see is the first step, and that's okay. So, how do we be okay with having faith and just taking this one moment at a time? Just simply taking the first step. She says that is the third reflection or learning for us today. So, in your notes, the third point she wants to highlight, how do you learn to be okay with just taking the first step without seeing the whole staircase? Reflection point number one is, how do we learn to look back in the past to see what wisdom and insight we gained from the past? Reflection point number two, how do we be open to new ideas and new learnings and journeying into new fish tanks? Point number three is, how do we be okay with just taking the first step? Just taking the first step. Now, this next point, I'm going to say, this next point really hit me. The fourth point that Dr. Bryant makes in this chapter 7 is, how do we assess in our lives who are encouragers and who are discouragers? Please write these questions down in your notes. 2 questions. This is the fourth point. 2 questions. Who in my life is an encourager? Who in my life is a discourager? Dr. Bryant says, oftentimes in our life, what hinders us from building self-confidence is we're not listening to the encouragers. We're spending too much time listening to the discouragers and not enough time listening to the encouragers. She says, so first and foremost, we have to weed out who in our life are discouragers and how do we silence those voices? I'm reminded in our gospel text of Jesus in the wilderness. Jesus, after being baptized and experiencing a divine holy moment, the heavens open, a dove appears over Jesus' head. A voice from heaven, that voice being God, says, this is my son in whom I'm well pleased. And then the Spirit drives Jesus into the wilderness to be tempted for 40 days and 40 nights, where the only voice Jesus is listening to, the only voice that's talking, is a discourager, the devil. The devil seeks to tempt Jesus. Dr. Brian highlights how we have to be careful assessing first and foremost who are discouragers and who are encouragers, and quieting the voice of the discourager. The discourager could be anybody. The discourager could be the devil himself. The discourager could be somebody in our family. The discourager could be somebody closest to us. The discourager could be our own mother. The discourager could be our own father. The discourager might be our child. The discourager might be our husband, our wife. The discourager could be our best friend of 40 years. The discourager could be an elementary school teacher, a high school teacher. How do we quiet those voices and not listen to discouragers? And so Dr. Brian says the fourth point that we have to highlight is do an assessment of our lives. Write out a list of who are all the encouragers in your life and who are all the discouragers in your life. And how do you limit those discouragers and increase the encouragers? In some sense, a popular quote that I like to highlight is a prayer that we should all pray. God, please put bold, connected people in my life. Send people who will stand beside me as I fight to break harmful cultural agreements that do not serve me. Send me people who will go to war for me and make sure I eat at every table they set. Our prayer must be, Lord, send encouragers in our life. Don't let us listen to the discouragers. If there's discouragers in our life, let us not even talk to them anymore. Let us let them go and not internalize anything that they are saying to us. But first thing first, we got to do an assessment. We got to do an assessment. Because for many of us, Dr. Brian says, we've never done an assessment of our circle before. We've never sat back and really reflected. Is this person in my life as an encourager? Or is this person in my life as a discourager? So the assignment that she pushes us, that she challenges us to engage in is do an assessment of our circle. Think about, reflect on each person in your life, from family members to friends to loved ones, colleagues, associates. Do an assessment of each person in your life and ask yourself, have an authentic, honest conversation with yourself. Ask yourself, for each person, is this person in my life as an encourager? Or is this person in my life as a discourager? And part of asking yourself that question will be being open to what Spirit is saying to you about every person in your life. Even if it's painful that you might have to cut some people off or cut some people out of your life. How do you be open to that? So there are times when Dr. Brian says it's healthy to exit some people from our lives. Did you know? Forgiving people in silence and never speaking to them again is a form of self-care. Forgiving people in silence and never speaking to them again is a form of self-care. we got to take an exhale moment right there. That is huge. That is huge. There may be times in your life where somebody is a discourager. You might have to forgive them, but never speak to them again. Because at the end of the day, Dr. Brian highlights that exiting people who are discouragers in your life is a form of self-care. Exiting people who are discouragers in your life is a form of self-care. That's a form of self-care, family. When we think about self-care, oftentimes we think self-care is about practices like eating right, exercising, getting enough rest, getting enough sleep. But self-care is also removing people in your lives who don't have your best interests at heart. And she adds that self-care also looks like establishing new relationships with people that are sent to encourage you. Establishing new relationships with people that are sent to be encouragers to you. That's right. So she says, while you are exiting people from your lives that are not helpful for you, it's so important to also add persons in your life that are helpful for you, that are healthy for your being in mind, body, and spirit. So this may mean establishing a new mothering relationship with someone. If your mother was a discourager to you, maybe it's time to, as a form of self-care, exit that relationship. No longer allow that toxic relationship to harm you, and approach another woman in life that you know. Might be a biological relative, it might not be, and say, hey, I need a mommy. Will you be my mommy? This is a hard, painful conversation, family. This is a hard, painful topic. And so I'm sensitive to what I'm highlighting from chapter 7 of our homecoming book is not an easy conversation. It's a difficult conversation, but it's so important. It's so important. There may be ways in which we have to renegotiate relationships in our lives by exiting those relationships that are not healthy for us, and at the same time, establishing new relationships with other people. Saying, hey, I need a mommy, or I need a daddy. I need a brother. I need a sister. I need a loved one. I need somebody that's going to be my advocate, somebody that's going to support me and be on my side. So building self-confidence means, here's a recap. Number one, reflecting on our own past life experiences, grabbing golden nuggets from those experiences and figuring out how those golden nuggets can serve us in the future. Building self-confidence is also not being afraid to be open to new ideas, new concepts, jumping into the deep, jumping into a new fish tank, even if we're the only little fish in that fish tank. Number three, building self-confidence is understanding that we might not see the whole staircase, the whole mission and vision for what God is calling us to be and do, but we just have to take it one moment at a time, one step at a time. And last but not least, number four, building self-confidence is knowing who are our encouragers in life and who are our discouragers in life. Who are the people sent to encourage us? Who are the people sent to discourage us? And how do we do something about that? How do we, on our journey in life, say, you know what? This is your stop where you need to get off and you need to exit my life now. And at the same time, how do we renegotiate relationships where we're reaching out to people saying, hey, I need you to be my substitute new mom or my substitute new dad. Forgiving people in silence and never speaking to them again is a form of self-care. And it's also a form of self-care by renegotiating new relationships. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Final words from our pastor.
The late Nipsey Hussle, I posted a quote on social media. He said, if you look at the people in your circle and you don't get inspired, you don't have a circle, you have a cage.
Wow.
If you look at the people in your circle and you don't get inspired, you don't have a circle, you have a cage. So it is difficult, but it is necessary. And it also means, because oftentimes we get in the rut of our circle, going to work, going to church, going here, going there, that we go regularly, and we see the same old people. We interact with the same people. So it also means sometimes maybe joining a book club where there's a different circle of people that you can interact with. This is also important for dating, because people talk about dating the same person over and over again. And you wonder why those same people are in your circle. So, I mean, if you're in a book club, it might mean taking a class at the local university, just a class, not a whole course, a class on writing or swimming class or something like that. Expanding the circle, and in that, oftentimes, that mother figure, that father figure, that brother figure, sister figure, that confidant personality will arise as we open ourselves up and take that one step, ain't got to have the whole staircase. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, family. Well, we will reconvene on next Tuesday, and hopefully we'll have the technical issues worked out. Sorry that this is a recording, but hopefully we'll have that worked out. We'll be live. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on next week.